Welcome to 247 Real Talk. I'm your host, Julian Perry, and it's a pleasure to be here with you once again on this bitterly cold week after a massive snowstorm in New York. I say massive because, massive is relative. I remember decades ago, a foot or 2 feet of snow was not anything extraordinary, but, for the last 5 years, we've been dealing with some winters where we got less than an inch. So the 12 inches I got where I am and other places got more has sort of crippled us in a way because we've become unfamiliar with winter in the United States and especially in New York. It's a pleasure to be here with you once again for another episode of the 247 Real Talk podcast. I hope your week was great. I hope that you accomplished many things. I hope that you had time to ponder on the previous episodes. I want to thank my listeners, those who remain with me, those new listeners, especially want to give an extra shout out to those who listen to the podcast via a podcast app, the audio version, because I've seen those numbers triple in downloads, and I'm so appreciative for you. So thank you ever so much for your support. Sit back, relax, and I'll be right back. All right, so welcome back to another episode, another brief episode, but hopefully a meaningful one. And I usually base my episodes on things I read during the week. I try to stay away from the core of politics, but I also want to empower each other and empower you and remind all of us of our role in life and the things that we need to pay attention to make sure that our life is meaningful and to make sure that we're doing all we can to make a difference in an environment, in a world, in a place that's fighting goodness and kindness and righteousness with the maximum amount of its power. I read something that reminded me of a conversation I had with actually a documentary. I think I mentioned this a few times over the last 280 something episodes. So I remember watching a documentary on gangs in LA. And to make a long story short, they were interviewing a mother whose son had been gunned down somewhere on the street, and then at his funeral, which was really sad because they showed footage of the funeral where his little daughter was looking at him. There was gunfire outside the funeral home, like a drive-by, where nobody was hurt. But then word on the street was that there were two brothers who looked alike, and the wrong brother was gunned down. And about 6 to 8 weeks later, the brother, the one that was left alive, was at a skating rink or something with friends, and he was gunned down and killed. And in the interview with the mother, she was calm. She spoke with the reporter. She said, well, that's the life we live. My parents were gang members. I was a gang member. I am. And my kids are gang members. That's part of the life. You expect this to happen. It's just the way it is from generation to generation. And then I came across these words this week. And it says basically that people believe that because the parents had addictions or the grandparents have addictions, that the children are going to struggle with the same problems. People have just accepted that generational problems are passed down and nothing can be done about it. But why are we using an excuse for our problems and blaming it and our mistakes on our parents and saying it was generational? And we need to recognize as people that as long as we live, we have options. We have choices. We are not bound by a generational, I don't even want to call it a curse. It's almost a tradition. It's almost a rite of passage is what this woman was saying. that their children, and the little girl who looked at her father in the casket was destined to grow up in a few years and become a gang member. We are living in a time that tests us beyond anything we've ever seen. We're living in a time where each day we get up, many of us, including me, we deal with one struggle or the other. Whatever you believe in and how you choose to challenge that struggle, to overcome that struggle. Whether you're someone like me that believes, that has faith in who I am, whose I am, I always say, and prayer is part of my struggle. Whether you get up in the morning and you have this grit and determination that today is going to be somewhat in some way better than yesterday. Whether you get up today and decide that yesterday you missed an opportunity to help someone, like I said last episode, but you're going to make sure that you recognize that opportunity today. Whether you're going to wake up and realize that my parents and my grandparents never got an education. Yes, student loans are crazy, but I'm going to excel. This morning, I was coming home from physical therapy. I heard in the news that Yale of all universities, is allowing those students who apply themselves and who make it into Yale to, if your household income is less than $200,000 a year, your tuition is free. And if your family income, your household income is less than $100,000 a year, everything is free. I guess room, board, everything. And this is their response to the loss of equality and DEI and those things. So what does that say to the person who was living with tradition of failure, of custom, of born into a life that, because we have said that we follow generation after generation, is destined to go down a path of destruction? Not even by choice, but as a matter of conditioning, as a matter of growing up being told that is their trajectory, that is the destiny for their life without even trying. What if, and we have seen this across diversity, across every race, creed, and color, many less fortunate families, many families in poverty have children who are born with gifts, as we all have gifts, God-given gifts. And children who are born with exceptional talent, even academically. But right away, when they get to a certain age, even though they excelled through high school, they turn to a trade that eliminates the concept of going to college. Why? Because of the oppressiveness of student loans, of the unforgiving nature of debt. And here comes Yale. And I want to believe, and I'm hoping that in a country and in a world where goodness and righteousness still exists in a parallel medium to evil, that we will have children out of poverty, children who are from every race, creed, color, gender, or sexual orientation, whatever they may be, human beings who are brilliant enough to take the advantage of that Yale is offering, who are brilliant enough to get into them, because this is something that Yale is offering to meet the need that has been cut off, that has been torn away. And I'm hoping other universities follow, because imagine that in a world where everywhere I talk with young people now, college is not a part of their future plans. I speak with young people who immediately have eliminated college, not because of the effort or the work it takes, or the devotion or the determination, but simply because of the cost. They see their parents struggle. They see their parents have dreams of owning a home, but can't because student loan debt with interest is more than a mortgage. They've seen parents who have gone to college and sacrificed time and social living and social growth and interactions to get a degree, only to get a job that pays so low that they can barely afford to eat and pay their student loans and struggle with the rent, much less the mortgage. Shout out to Yale. I don't know the entire history of Yale. I've never read it. I'm sure there are others who will point out negatives about the school. But the fact that they're being progressive enough to offer this means something to me. If in its nature in which I heard it is pure and its intention is righteous. And I would call on other educational and academic institutions to consider this, because many of these universities have a lot of money. Over the years, they've made a lot of money. They have a lot of donors. And on top of that, because they've got this affluent portion of students, of a student body, many of their students at that caliber, their families make over $200,000 a year. So they're getting full tuition from others. I'm sure it's not every student they may have a quota, or they may have an academic level of achievement that qualifies you for this, the entrance. They may make it very high so that they do limit the amount of people who can take advantage of this. But still, it's a start. Imagine if other universities did it. I know in places like New York, where I am, our state has state university and city universities where for many people the tuition is minimal or in some cases free. If other states followed this and did it on a state level, where the governors made sure that the legislature put enough in the budget to fund state colleges and universities where people could learn either professional education or a trade. Think about the value that we can bring back to society despite the odds. Think about the opportunities to at least earn a living, and even if you're not getting the maximum salary, you're not burdened with a student loan. Think about what we could become if we stop telling ourselves we can't, or we are destined to not achieve. This follows through in many parts of our thinking and our conditioning. I've seen people who live in an apartment. They were born in an apartment that their parents lived in, that their parents took over from their grandparents. Grandparents died, parents got the apartment, same name on the lease. Now it goes down. The rents are very low because they've behaved as if they've never left. But they don't have any ambitions beyond that. Oh, mortgage is going to be too much. I don't need to own any property. They find all these excuses to not saying that it would necessarily work out for 100% of people, but they find all these excuses to make sure it's a non-starter, to make sure that they don't even have to think about trying. They make all these excuses so they condition themselves that there's no need to waste energy on having that type of ambition. Taking this story back to that mother. She had 2 sons. She lost both sons to the gang, to murder. And she was, if you'd seen this interview, if for me, maybe I'm naive, there's a lot of innocence to me, even though I've seen a lot, I've been through a lot, and researched a lot, and witnessed a lot. But she was as calm. Maybe the calm was numbness. But I don't think they interviewed her immediately after the event. I think that this was sometime in the future where they were reaching out and doing this documentary on parents or families who had gone through this violence of gang violence in LA. But she sat there cool and calm and explained it. That she didn't seem to have a hurt. She seemed to have an acceptance. Because her parents were in gangs and she was in the gang, the kids were in the gang. And one of the I don't even want to say risks. One of the acceptances of that life is that you live understanding that grief is a normal part of it, not because of human life and living and accidents or old age or whatever, just because your conditioning says that you're not likely to make it to 21. That the fact that she was a woman, she wasn't that old either. I would say in her 40s. But the fact that she had made it to her 40s and she was used to being in a gang and her kids were in the gang means that she saw herself as overcoming, as victory, in the sense that she had survived that long. And it was an accomplishment. And that if her sons had made it past 21 years old, I believe she said that was, not an expectation. Imagine how many of you are parents. How many of you have nieces and nephews? How many of you are school teachers? How many of you get attached to kids, whether it's your own or others, as they grow as a mentor role, as a parental role, and see this child grow up? And you get attached to this human being as a person, and you nurture them. You provide for them. You support them in every way. And you look at them each day and say, I don't expect you to make it past 21. Because we have decided, we have predetermined that from generation to generation, this is our destiny. Why is this relevant today? Because we've got so many minorities and so many families who have struggled from generation to generation. And we walk around with this mindset that this is it. This is our ceiling. So when we're facing unjust oppression, we accept it because we don't expect any better from ourselves or from those around us in our community or the people close to us. This is part of my series. This is part of my motivation to say that is not your destiny. Whatever your destiny is, you have a say and a choice. You have a say in who you will be. Even if you set this high ceiling and you don't reach it, the climb sets an example for those around you and for your generations to come that, yes, I saw my father reach 5 rungs in the ladder after generations before when he reached 2. I'm going to do better than my father. I'm going to do better than my mother. There I can see because he reached higher, because my examples, my mentors reached higher, because they either lived trying or died trying, that there is a path to something better, that I don't have to accept being oppressed. But this cannot be done in a singular fashion. The problem for one of us is the problem for all of us. Those who have accepted the destiny of gang and violence or whatever will take out that destiny in an impactful way to those who have not. Those who are innocent or thought they were isolated. This is an us problem. And this is an us solution. If it impacts one, it impacts all. We see injustices all over the world. We look at it through our lens. We look at it through TV. We look at it through our phones. And we look at it and say it happened to them. When one of us is mistreated, when one of us receives an injustice, it didn't happen to them. It happened to us regardless of race, creed, or color. We are seeing in our society and societies more and more around the world that things that people thought would impact minorities or a certain gender or a certain sexual orientation have long-reaching arms that somehow managed to disprove or dispel that isolation and reach out and grab people who thought they were immune. We can make a difference in each other's lives, but we can't do it saying those people and them. Each time we see an opportunity to rise. Each time we see an opportunity to stand up. Each time we see an opportunity to help. Each time we see an opportunity to mentor. Each time we see an opportunity to hope. Each time we see an opportunity to make our voices heard. It's not their problem. It's ours. That's why I tell you now and tell you always, remember, please take care of yourselves and each other.